Good evening, everyone. I'm Charlie Tolhurst, and welcome to the Charlie Tolhurst Show for today, the 6th of August. We're now already into August with plenty of great news content lined up and plenty of podcasts throughout the month. And as this Conservative Party leadership contest hots up, and also more news coming out in the way of military, military action from around the world. And I'm joined by lay party supporter Zach James around all latest news. Hello, Zach.
Hi, Charlie. Hello, mate.
Right, this week we start off with the big news of the week, which has come from Asia this week, China and Taiwan. The crisis over there is escalating. We knew what happened in Ukraine back in February, Vladimir Putin launching what he calls a special military operation in Ukraine's Donbass region, which for us it's called a war. China and Taiwan very close again, or very close, should I say, now, close as ever been to going into a potential conflict in Asia. This will be very serious, guys. I am very concerned. We must stand up to China. And this is a very important time for the West now. The West must act immediately. In my opening monologue tonight, the West needs to do more to stand up against China like we did against Russia. We need to make sure we prepare possible sanctions for China, targeting the key areas like Russia did in case the invasion comes. Because if the invasion comes, the Chinese people must, and in my view, the Chinese government must be isolated from the world. Zach, what do you make to the escalation in the China and Taiwan conflict, in particular, China's military exercises just off the coast of Taiwan?
Yeah, it's getting quite serious now, isn't it? It all started because Nancy Pelosi, the US president, made an unscheduled visit to Taiwan, which I think she has every right to do. And good on her for doing that, Charlie. I think it's very good that she visited Taiwan. It's very traditional for people who run in US Congress and other people. I mean, the last US speaker to actually visit Taiwan was Newt Gingrich. I think his name is, back in 25 years ago. Newt Gingrich was the Republican Speaker of the US House of Representatives at the time, Charlie. He visited Taiwan. That was obviously in a different environment when Chinese-Taiwan tensions and, world tensions with China were much less, Charlie. Now the situation is a lot more different now, Charlie. And China are very strict on their one China policy, where they run the country and they think that Taiwan is basically essentially part of China and their territorial land. That's what they think. Although Taiwan has been self-governed by not by those in the Chinese Communist Party, but by their own government and parliament, Charlie. So that they are basically running a different government. Although the Chinese think it's part of their land. This week, now, as I said, Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan to obviously talk about standing up for democracy, obviously chips, other manufacturing, important manufacturing that's done in Taiwan, and many more as well, Charlie. And it responded, it came with quite a very aggressive response from the Chinese, saying that there would be consequences if this sort of thing happened. And there was actually, to be fair, China sanctioned Nancy Pelosi yesterday, Charlie, which, if that was me, I'd take it with a badge of honor, to be fair, being sanctioned by China, because they seem to don't like free speech these days, and it's always under a controlled communist regime. But yeah, Nancy Pelosi got sanctioned. There are some other areas of talks that have been cut off by the Chinese in areas such as climate, manufacturing, and other areas as well. And what has also escalated the situation now is that China are now doing military drills, as you said, near to Taiwan land and into the Taiwanese sea area, Taiwanese. Let's call it Taiwanese because I'm trying to think of a long name there. But yeah, they're doing drills there, rocket drills, weapon drills, drills into sea, aircraft going over Taiwanese land.
It's a bit like what Russia did to Ukraine, wasn't it, when they done their military training?
Exactly. It's got all the signs of a, it's got all the signs of an escalation on the way, Charlie. And that's not great to hear, but this is the situation that everyone currently is in at the moment, I'm afraid, Charlie. So yeah, it's not good at all, and this is probably going to escalate now, which is unfortunate, and I don't want it to escalate because there's no reason to escalate it. There is no reason at all. China should not be dictating what Taiwan, the self-governing area, can do, really, to be fair. And they should not be dictating Nancy Pelosi, who I think is very brave, very good, that she visited Taiwan. And there's unanimous support across the Congress for this, and rightly so, to be able to visit Taiwan. But obviously, because of this visit now, despite the fact that, the Chinese have sort of held back on wanting to try and get Taiwan a part of their nation, they're escalating the rhetoric now, Charlie, which is very unfortunate and not necessary at all. All it is for Nancy Pelosi just visited Taiwan. That's it. And China is acting like it's the end of the world. And we know what China does when they feel threatened. They threaten consequences. They take consequences. It is a rocky situation now for the United States, for Taiwan, and for China. And it's going to drag the rest of the world in it. Russia are on the side of the Chinese. North Korea on the side of the Chinese. Not really surprising when you've got communist and, extreme regimes supporting each other. Then it's not necessary. So, yeah, the situation is escalating. I don't want it to escalate, but I have a feeling, like we saw with the Russia situation, this is going to escalate even more, unfortunately, I think, in my personal opinion.
And remember what Russia did? They went to war with Ukraine, and we ended up with the biggest conflict since 1945 between two democracies, two countries as well. I can't believe if China do invade Taiwan, unfortunately, guys, I say this tonight, I fear World War III could come, and this would be devastating for the whole world if China decides to pull the trigger and invade Taiwan, which again is an independent country, which has their own right for their own democracy. This could well start a third world war off, guys. Please, I do not want to get into this. Yes, we can boast on about hypersonic missiles, as Vladimir Putin calls it, in a bit of news this week. And yeah, it's not great. Whilst we're staying on the subject of military conflict, I'm going to go straight over to the war in Ukraine now, because we're on the subject of this. And obviously this week we've seen lots more. I mean, a bit quiet up front, but we've still seen lots of news. We've seen many battles in person now between the Russians and the Ukrainians, with artillery being thrown, missiles hitting nuclear plants again. Both sides, Zach, taking this extremely seriously.
Yeah, absolutely, Charlie. And this war may now be entering a very new and important area now, Charlie, because the Ministry of Defence, the UK Ministry of Defence, put out earlier that there is now a significant buildup of Russian forces in southern Ukraine now. The MOD said it was unclear whether these additional forces were for a new assault on Ukraine territory or in anticipation for Ukrainian counter-offence. So what they've basically said is that there's trucks, tanks, artillery, and other weapons that are moving away from the Donbass region and are heading towards southwest, Charlie. Now, that is going to be interesting. Now, are they done with Donbass, but at the expense going to try ahead for the likes of, I don't know, Kharkiv potentially as well? If we're talking about the southwest, Charlie, then it could possibly be areas. Let's look here. If I get on the map here, I'm looking.
They could go for the capital potentially,
but you could be seeing like areas of Vienna, Clemenstry as well, I would say, that are all at risk of, being a victim of this war. I'm afraid, Charlie, it could well be a victim of the war as well, which is very unfortunate. You look at Kyiv, because they could go for Kyiv. I think they could go for Kyiv again potentially. If we talk about the southwest, Charlie, we're looking at Kyiv potentially. We're looking at maybe Kharkiv as well. Politov, I think they'll certainly aim. It's a very concerning situation, Charlie, that they are going to escalate this. A new BTG has been deployed to Crimea, and BTG has all been deployed in the Eastern Group of Forces. They'll likely be second in the Kherson region in the coming days. So this is probably where they're going to target, Charlie, the Kherson, possibly for a counter-offensive, because Kherson at the moment looks like Ukraine are trying to regain that back. But yeah, it looks like we're going to enter stage 3 of the war. Is Donbass the region done with yet so far? Is that going to continue? Are we looking at others as well? We don't know, Charlie, at the moment. But yeah, that's one area to watch, I would certainly say. Let's go through the summary, Charlie, of what's happened so far. The EU have condemned Russian acts regarding the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. It's been at serious risk, according to the state nuclear energy company. Dozens of Ukrainian soldiers have been burnt to death, Charlie, in a detention center outside Donetsk. That's war crimes right in front of your eyes. It's appalling, Charlie. Absolutely appalling as well. There's been Russian shelling in Dnipropetrovsk, injuring 3 people and destroying residential buildings, a kindergarten, a children's art center, and the Luhansk region in pro-Russian forces are using humiliating aid to lure residents to provide personal data to participate in a referendum on joining Russia as well. So Russia using proxy referendums and sham referendums and use of people's communist data really to, be able to take part in sham elections and fix the result, Charlie. So yeah, the war is about to enter stage 3 now, Charlie. I mean, stage 2 went better for Russians than I suppose some people anticipated, which is not great. Stage 3 is going to get even more tricky, I'm afraid, Charlie. And this war's going to go on. Stage 1 was definitely a loss for the Russians. Stage 2 was more better, but there is risk of losing Kherson. And I don't think stage 3, Charlie, is going to be any easier for Russia in this new phase of the war.
Also, as well, more news: 3 ships carrying 60,000 tons of grain have departed from the Ukrainian Black Sea ports this week. That came after Russia attacked the Odessa earlier this week with missiles. Now, this is an interesting one. Amnesty International has said it stands by its accusation that Ukraine is endangering civilians by creating army bases in residential areas to counter Russian forces after a report from the rights group prompted the furious response from Kiev. Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president, criticised Amnesty over a report published on Thursday saying the rights group was drawing false evidence between Ukraine and the victim of aggression and the Russian invaders. Oh, why are they getting involved?
Yeah, I mean, this report, Charlie, was pathetic. It's been widely condemned. It's been pointed out as well that they didn't say anything about Russians. Some other Russian areas being like murdered brutally to death, and they stayed silent on that. But yet they are able to attack Ukrainians for something like this. It actually got retweeted, I believe, from the Russian embassy, Charlie, and the Russian government. It's a very bad. They've lost their reputation at Amnesty very badly. I think this is a massive loss of reputation for them because it's been widely condemned. I certainly don't endorse the report either, Charlie. It's not very. It's an unsolicited and unverified and poor report overall. And it just tells you they've got their wrong priorities, I'm afraid, Charlie, on this one.
Also, as well, Vladimir Putin has met Recap Tayyip Erdogan for talks that were expected to focus on Russia's war in Ukraine and rumoured to include Kremlin efforts to circumvent Western sanctions. The president welcomed Erdogan to Sochi, a resort city that hosted the 2014 Olympic Winter Games on the Black Sea, thanking the Turkish president for help in securing an international deal that resolved grain exports. Is Turkey's prime minister officially joining Russia in getting into this war? I hope not.
No, I don't think they are, Charlie. But the Turkish are a very fine line to battle here. They have to battle between being obviously with the NATO allies and also some, countries that they work closely with as well from the Middle East, as well. They're quite, and there's other areas as well that that despite the war, Turkey wants to work with Russia on without being supporting or funding their war. So it's a difficult balancing act for Turkey. I think it's clear that they see that they can condemn the actual actions of the Russians so far, but also like with the grain export deal, that's good, Charlie. To be fair, it's good to see Turkey actually got involved because all their grain export come via the Black Sea, Charlie, and it's a crucial trading sector for worldwide businesses and worldwide food markets. So obviously they had to get involved somehow. And to be fair, you got to praise Turkey for that. But I don't think they're funding this war. But I also think they're also sometimes a bit too cozy to the Russians. But they're certainly not really getting involved in this war very much, to be fair, Charlie.
It's very interesting. Please comment down below what you make of the current situation in Ukraine and also in Taiwan. Please let me know. Now, moving on to the UK now. I'm going to talk quickly before we just move on. Today, unfortunately, we lost. Oh God! Someone is at my phone's going off. That is very crazy. That's
I do it all the time,
by the way.
My one goes off as well.
So yeah, we're back on air now, guys. I do apologise that if any of you have
turn my light on.
been following the news, that we're back on air now. Right, so we're on air now. Let's talk more about Archie Battersby. Now, unfortunately, he died today at the age of 12 years old after his family went through a horrible process of trying to get him treatment. The European Court of Rights, as I call them, the European snowflakes at the time as well, basically blocking treatment for Archie Battersby. Unfortunately, died today. I can't say enough, Zach, that this death is a result, I think, of treatment not being given.
Yeah. First of all, Charlie, obviously, thoughts and prayers obviously go out to the Archie Battersy's family, Charlie. I'm sorry, I'm just cleaning my camera. Just in case it's that black screen. My thoughts go to the family because it's clear they've gone through hell and torture and horror for the last few weeks, and they've done everything they can to save their son, Charlie. But it's clear to me that he wasn't going to get any better. He's basically brain dead. His actual body was deteriorating, Charlie. And I can understand the pain of wanting to keep, him on life support, and see out the final, kept keeping on there for as long as possible until it was impossible. And I know they went through various processes, such as the courts in here, the courts in Europe. I think at the end of the day, Charlie, they all came to the same opinion that he wasn't going to survive. And the best thing was to turn off his life support. It's obviously a very sad moment to see someone's life support turned off and him suddenly dying. And it's a very sad and horrible ending. And I can understand the anxiety and the torture and the pain that the family's going to go through now, Charlie. Because it's a horrible, horrible thing for it to happen. But I got to commend their family for being so determined to keep their son alive. I think, to be honest, Charlie, there was a bipartisan realization with the courts here and in courts in Europe that the medical experts was just saying, he's going to die. There's no point keeping the life support. It's not going to get any better. And, it's probably the right thing at the end of the day, as heartbreaking it is to say. But, yeah, I feel sorry for them. May Archie rest in peace. And may his memories be a blessing, Charlie.
Yeah, it's a horrible loss. I can't believe.
Too early.
I cannot believe that they couldn't get him treatment. I mean, obviously his parents tried so hard, and the European Court of Human Rights said we'd have to fly him to they wanted him to go to a hospice, and meant moving him out of the hospital, which I thought would have been possible because they could have saved his life. But he's now dead at just 12 years old. It's a horrible, horrible loss. And I wrote on Twitter earlier today that it was just very upsetting news, and people need more better health. I think people like that just need better healthcare, and they need more better, just in general, politics needs to get out of the way of this and save someone's life. That's what you got to do. So my thoughts with Archie Battersby, and I hope everyone around the world is as well. Horrible loss here in the UK. My thoughts are with Archie Battersby's family right now, who must be going through a pretty tough time at the moment after losing their son. But moving on now from that, final bit of the agenda before we move on to the sports news. I'm going to quickly round up the Tory leadership contest now. This week has been a week of pretty interesting campaigning from both Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss. This week as well, interest rates, I believe, have hit the highest level in something like 20 years, if I'm correct. I'm not entirely sure, because interest rates are on the highest level for many years. The Bank of England did announce that earlier this week. And it's clear to me Rishi Sunak wants to pour money into developing and basically give money from more deprived areas and put them in richer areas, whilst Liz Truss sort of has a more balanced approach, maybe on the issue in terms of what her policies might be. But it's a very mishmash of policies that I still don't quite understand how this cost of living crisis is going to be tackled. So, what did you make to their Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss's campaigning this week to be the next Prime Minister?
I'll be honest, Charlie, it's been a bad week for both campaigns, and I'll tell you why. They've been both marked with controversy and very unpopular policies. One of them had to go into dump. The other has been criticised for being leaked, literally, for what has been said. Let's start with Liz Truss first, Charlie. First of all, she had to drop a policy. It was called the Regional Pay Board policy, where she wanted to find 11 billion savings from civil service, cutting the civil service, reducing their work day, holiday days, and getting them back into the office, Charlie. And then there was a bit in the savings where she said that 9 billion of it will be funded by something called regional pay boards. Now, the problem, it sounds good, but then the problem of this, Charlie, is that civil servants who are close to London and live in more wealthier areas would get paid more than, say, northern areas that are more deprived and earn less money. So if you live in the north, Charlie, you would get less than, say, someone who lives in London under this regional pay board scheme that Liz Truss was proposing. And it was an awful idea. This was not levelling up. This was levelling down. It was levelling up London, not levelling up the north. And it got condemned from the likes of Ben Houchen, who's the Teesside mayor, to many other politicians as well, Charlie, that got condemned for condemning Truss's policy on the regional pay board. It was dropped the next day, but she kept claiming that media was representing it, which I don't agree with. It was clear to day as well to see what was in it. And then on, I think it was the Friday, yesterday, Charlie, she had a protester. Protesters decided to interrupt her hustings speech. It was from the Green New Deal group, Charlie, that managed to get into Conservative hustings and protest her speech. The hecklers did get removed, and then she decided to talk about her ideas of basically stopping protesters like, the Extinction Rebellion lot and the others like that, who are, disrupting people's lives. And understandable, some areas I agree on that one as well, but not a good week for Liz Truss. And I don't think it's been a good week for Rishi Sunak either. Especially, I think it was also on Thursday, Charlie, where a leak from the New Statesman, Charlie, came out of him talking to Conservative members in Tunbridge Wells, where he actually boasted about the fact that he wanted to change the rules so that less money was going to wealthy urban areas instead of, poor rural areas. And I thought that was a stupid and, quite frankly, disastrous thing to admit out loud to rich Tory conservatives, Charlie, that you would actually remove money from poor areas and give it to richer Tory areas that already have the money. That's so bad. And it's been a bad week for both, I think, Charlie. They made two controversial comments separately that are unforgivable and are creating thousands of attack ads, Charlie, for the next election for Labour. I can guarantee that all these attack ads are going to come out that Labour are going to probably be like spicing up and ready to fire at the next election, Charlie, because, those are terrible, terrible things that you can say, Charlie, and admit, because that they were awful.
Well, yeah, I've actually got a clip of Rishi Sunak actually here that was sent from The Guardian of him admitting that taking money from deprived areas in some leaked footage. Have a listen to this.
From all of you, I managed to start changing the funding formulas to make sure that areas like this are getting the funding that they deserve. Because we inherited a bunch of formulas from the Labour Party that shoved all the funding into deprived urban areas. Then that needed to be undone. I started the work of undoing that.
Yeah, Rishi Sunak there talking about the policy that he said Labour ripped up. Okay, yeah, maybe. I don't know. It's an interesting one.
It's a terrible statement to make, Charlie, because you're talking about taking money from deprived areas that are poor and are struggling and giving it to more wealthy areas. They've got plenty of money and are rich anyway, and they can splash up the money. That's not levelling up, Charlie. That's levelling down for poor areas. That was a New Statesman, by the way, that actually leaked the video. One of the reporters managed to get a clip of it from Sunak speaking to Conservative members in Tunbridge Wells. But that, Charlie, that is a terrible thing to admit. I mean, yeah, he has blamed the last Labour government, but the fact that you've openly admitted to stealing money from the poor, giving it to the rich, is a horrible, terrible, and, quite frankly, disastrous look, regardless of whether you blame it on Labour or not.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how both candidates get on. Tory leadership election continues. New Prime Minister elected in just under a month's time now. Wow. About a month today, we find out who the next Prime Minister of the UK will be. It's not going to be long away. Keep you updated on all that news. Moving on now to the sport briefing now. Well, let's touch on F1. Now, last week's Hungarian Grand Prix won by, you guessed it, Max Verstappen from 10th on the grid in a pretty frantic race, which now marks the final race until the summer break. We're now on the summer break, with the next race taking place towards the end of August. That means we can reflect on a quite interesting first half of the season, being pretty interesting for Max Verstappen, leading the championship, dominating the majority of it. But there's big driver news. Now, this week, Oscar Piastri didn't join Alpine. So for that, he's now off somewhere else, apparently. I think he's gone to DTM, if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure. Piastri...
Oh, that was a parody, Charlie. That was some joke that DTM put out. DTM. So he isn't actually going to DTM, by the way. I should point that's a joke that was put out by DTM itself.
Yeah, they're mocking him not joining Alpine. Well, that was crazy because he was actually on course to join Alpine, and then the bombshell dropped that Piastri wouldn't be racing for the team. So, oh god, an honorary mention there to Oscar Piastri for not joining an F1 team. Oh, well, let's talk though about Daniel Ricciardo, because there's been a lot of speculation about his future at McLaren, and I've been on social media this week quite a bit talking about Ricciardo's future at McLaren. He's had a pretty difficult first half of the season. He's not been consistent enough in terms of scoring as many points against Lando. Lando Norris has even had a podium. I think he might have had at least one or two. But he had a podium in Imola, I think I remember.
Yeah.
But yes, Daniel Ricciardo at McLaren, consistency-wise, even last time out in Hungary, he didn't do that well.
No, he didn't really. To be fair, Charlie, he didn't really do that well. And his seat is a risk, no doubt about it. And it's now looking increasingly more likely now that he is going to be out of McLaren at the end of the season, despite the fact he's got another year in the contract. And that leads us all to this driving talk, Charlie, because what a few days in the F1 silly season it has been in terms of the driver market. First of all, we found out, obviously, Sebastian Vettel started it all off by retiring from Aston Martin. Then it was revealed that his seat was going to be taken over by Fernando Alonso. Surprise, surprise, on a multi-year deal at Aston Martin. So presumably at least 2 years, Charlie, rather than the allegedly 1 + 1 year option that rumoredly Alpine were offering. Now that left the door open for a seat, Charlie. Now the big rumors was it's going to be Oscar Piastri, and that was confirmed by Alpine at I think 5 p.m. a few days ago that it was going to be Piastri in the seat at Alpine with Esteban Ocon. Oh, it didn't end there, Charlie. It did not end there. At 7 p.m., Oscar Piastri put out a statement saying that without his approval, that Alpine put out, this statement saying that he'd be driving at Alpine next year. He then put, "This is not true. I will not be. I do not have been confirmed to a seat at Alpine next year. I will not be driving at Alpine next year." And then F1 community literally blew up, because I'll tell you something, Charlie, it has shades of what's going on with is it Colton Herta and Chip Ganassi and McLaren, because there is a little dispute going on in there. I might not be Colton Herta, it might be Patricia. I can't remember. Is it
Patricia? It's like one of them drivers, yeah,
one of those drivers. Charles, I was going to say it wasn't Colton Herta, but Alex Palou, I think it is, because there is a dispute between Chip Ganassi, McLaren there. Palou is saying he's not racing at Chip Ganassi. He's probably got a contract at McLaren for next season. On what role, we don't know. But yeah, it's all kicked off from there. And now the spotlight is on Daniel Ricciardo, because it looks like from reporting that McLaren are going to offer him a huge sum of money to get him out of contract. And maybe Oscar Piastri is going to end up at McLaren, Charlie. I mean, what a silly season that is going to be. Where Daniel Ricciardo could be going? Back to Alpine, potentially. Which, I never expected an Aussie on Aussie battle for McLaren seat, Charlie. It's quite stunning. And this is only the start of silly season, Charlie. It's going to be a long summer ahead in terms of silly seasons now. We're going to find out the rest of the seat. Alex Albon, we know he's definitely staying for a further 2 years at Williams now, Charlie, because he signed a new 2-year deal at Williams. We're waiting for the other seat to be confirmed. Nicholas Latifi's seat is still not certain next year.
Very vulnerable, I think.
I think he's going to go. I think he will be replaced by Logan Sargent, in my personal opinion. I think Tsunoda's probably going to stay at AlphaTauri, because his seat, he's not contracted for next year yet. I think Guan Yu Zhou is also not under contract next year as well. I think he will stay there. But this is a silly season so far, Charlie. Let's bring us all the drama and the sparks. It's been F1 community have literally turned Oscar Piastri into a meme, and the memes going everywhere from football to other areas as well, Charlie, like DTM, minor football clubs. It's incredible, Charlie, how much memes that are going around because of Oscar Piastri's bombshell. And well done, F1 community. This has been a brilliant few weeks for you. You've just lived it up. You've given us some good content. But now the drama really starts now, Charlie, of what's going to happen with those seats that are coming up. It's going to be, oof. Get the popcorn out. That's all I'm going to say.
In the next season of Drive to Survive, I'll get that out, certainly. So,
yeah,
very interesting indeed. But that's the F1 news. Moving on now to, let's go to NASCAR now. Now, last week, very interesting race at Indianapolis on the Grand Prix circuit. watching the highlights back, my goodness, have you not seen a race full of drama towards the end of the race? Chase Elliott, I thought, could have won again, but crashed out towards the end of that race. And it was Tyler Reddick who claimed his second win of the season, one, of course, at Road America, actually, for his maiden win, taking a second win. And Zach, the last few laps was so chaotic, but for Carl Larson hitting, well, let's be honest with you, Ty Dillon in that race, it was pretty horrible, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit of a whack, Charlie. That was certainly for that was certainly a whack, Charlie. Definitely, no doubt about it for Ty Dillon. It was a huge hit to the into the base of the driver's side of the car. It was horrible, very high speed. I think there's some sort of mechanical failure, Charlie, because you don't go around speeding that corner that fast. I think there was some sort of mechanical failure as well. And then you said at the end, Charlie, Chase Elliott. Whew, wow. Getting spun out with a couple of laps to go towards the end of the race. That was quite something. He finished well down the order at the end of the day, to be fair, Charlie. I mean, he finished way down the order. What to be, wasn't to be, could have been 16th, could have been 30, rounding out in 16th position, Charlie. Tyler Reddick was the winner at the end of the day, Charlie. Managed to survive the last gap, finished ahead of Austrian Cendric in second place. Now, I believe one of the drivers at the end, Charlie, we saw, had their position removed because they cut the corner. I can't remember who it was now. But
Chastain, I think.
I think it was Ross. Yeah, it probably was Ross Chastain, who cut the corner into turn one. Yeah, he's 27th, Charlie. Ross Chastain cut the corner into turn one, gained an advantage by leaving the track and gaining an advantage. And the second position, I believe he was at the time, Charlie, when he finished, became, I believe, 27th. So, yeah, big penalty for Ross Chastain from second to 27th, Charlie. No doubt about it. It was a very costly error for him. But Tyler Reddick won that race in a very dramatic fashion towards the finish as well, Charlie. And Chase Elliott could have won that as well, but it wasn't to be. This weekend, they're racing at Michigan, Charlie. Qualifying just finished. It's Bubba Wallace that is starting on the pole tomorrow ahead of Christopher Bell. It's Kyle Busch in third, Joe Logano fourth, Austin Cindric fifth, Tyler Reddick sixth, Martin Truex seventh, Larson eighth, Hamlin ninth, Eric Jones in 10th, and obviously 11th position is Ty Gibbs, who's deputising for Kurt Busch, who once again is still seeing the effects of concussion at the moment, so he's missing the third race in the row, Charlie. The Xfinity Series race is currently ongoing, Charlie. I think it's going at the moment. Yes, they're on lap 63. It's Ty Gibbs that is leading the race at the moment, ahead of Austin Hill and Sammy Smith in third position, Charlie. I haven't got the right one? I think I might have got the wrong one. Oh, no, yeah, I have. Sammy Smith, Noah Gragson fourth, Adrian Wood fifth, Justin Wells sixth, Josh Berry seventh, Brandon Jones eighth, Alfred Alvdale ninth, and in 10th position at the moment is Kaz Grayler. That is the Xfinity race, the LTI Printed 250 on lap 62 at the moment. Noah Gragson is leading that. And as I said, the Cup Series race is tomorrow as well at 8 p.m. UK time. The Truck Series race is off this week. They are back next week at Richmond, Charlie.
Yeah, well, it was a very interesting race. Just a quick update on that, the NASCAR race at, if I can get it up, there we go, Big Machine Vodka 400 there, at the road course there as well. It was Tyler Reddick who won, Austin Cindric second, Harrison Burton gets his career best, finished in third, driving the number 21 Wood Brothers car there. Number fourth place went the way of Todd Gilland. I think his best result as well, I think, in NASCAR. Bubba Wallace fifth, Joey Logano sixth, AJ Allmendinger was seventh, Michael McDowell eighth, Cole Custer ninth, Chris Buescher rounds out the top 10 as well. So NASCAR keeping an eye on the championship. Playoff season will start next month. We'll keep you updated with all the latest news on that one. And also now we're going to finally go to actually no, I think we did review IndyCar last week actually. So yeah, that's something we did review. Formula E as well. We had the final race last weekend in London that we're also going to quickly review because we did review race 1. We're going to quickly review race 2 now. This race, Zach, for Mitch Evans, just bad luck for him in the end.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mitch Evans, Charlie. It was a very disappointing race for Mitch Evans. Very costly result actually in the championship as well. No doubt about it. But let's talk about it then, because it was I didn't actually see it, but it was Lucas Di Grassi that actually had a very good and dominant race, winning the Grand Prix in first position. Jake Dennis in second. He actually got the pole and the fastest lap, although he didn't win at the end of the day, very unfortunately. So good weekend, I think, for Jake Dennis, no doubt about it, with 22 points on the board. Nick De Vries in third, Stoffel Van Dorn in fourth. That's a very crucial result for Stoffel Van Dorn as well. Ahead of Felix Acosta, Buemi, Robin Font, Sam Bird, Sergei Camera, and Pascal Vola. Now, I've just read, Charlie, that Sam Bird is going to miss the Seoul races, Charlie, because Sam Bird has broken his hand. Obviously, during the round 14, Sam Bird had an incident on the first lap. Following post-medical race checks, he tangled in the pack in turns 1 and 2, and he had but unfortunately driven a fractured left hand during the race. He finished from 15th to 8th. So that was a credible job, by the way. But he came, he drove that race with a fractured left hand from the first lap onwards. But yeah, unfortunately, he's injured. He's going to miss the final weekend of the season with Norman Nato, the reserve driver, is going to step in for Sam Bird instead. But what this means, Charlie, for the championship, let me just tell you this right now. Wrong one. I'll get up. Just pressing the wrong links here. What this means in the driver standings now after race 14, Charlie, is that Stoffel Van Dorn is now 36 points ahead of Mitch Evans, who had a DNF in round 14 in that race as well, Charlie. A horrible race for Mitch Evans. The worst thing that could happen to him. He's now only 5 points ahead of Edward Mortaro in third. It's now a 36-point gap between Stoffel Van Dorn and Mitch Evans. Now, if Stoffel Van Dorn can wrap up the title, Charlie, in race 1, as long as he finishes ahead of Mitch Evans, and even if Mitch Evans does finish ahead of Stoffel Van Dorn, then Van Dorn could finish right behind Mitch Evans and still win the championship. So it's basically all Stoffel Van Dorn really has to do is finish race 1 in the points, or he can finish with no points. Really, to be fair, Charlie, Mitch Evans could also finish with no points, and then Stoffel Van Dorn would be championship winner for this season, Charlie. That's all he needs to do. And I think personally that this championship is going to be over by the first Seoul race, which is next weekend, by the way. There's going to be 2 races, but I bet the championship is going to be wrapped up.
And the team's championship, Mercedes 291 points, a Rocket Venturi second on 255, and Techeetah 244. So the battle for second, but the team's championship could still be won.
Yeah, the team's championship is definitely not over. It still could go to the second race, Charlie. It could still basically the top 3 in the championship, the team's championship, Charlie. So the likes of, let me get it back up again. So DS Techeetah, Rocket Venturi, and Mercedes are still in the championship. DS Techeetah could still win this championship, but I think it's unlikely. It will then. I think it's going to be down between Rocket Venturi and Mercedes EQ. Mercedes EQ, there's 50 points basically up for potentially more than that for that, potentially depending on pole. But Mercedes EQ and Rocket Venturi still have a little bit of fight, Charlie. In fact, so where this has really happened, Charlie, in terms of the championship, Mercedes have overtaken Rocket because of the results in round 12, round 13, round 14. They finished ahead. So it's Mercedes' championship to lose, really. But as I said, it's still 2 races to go, and that championship could well go to the decider in the teams, Charlie.
Certainly going to be interesting coming up to Formula E. What do you make of it? Please comment down below what you make to the latest season. Final round takes place mid-August in Seoul, South Korea, home, of course, to where the 1988 Summer Olympic Games was held. Now it's time for Charlie's good news. Commonwealth Games action later on in my show on the Great British Star and Red Devil nominations. Talking now in news of Colchester, which is about to unveil something very interesting to the 2 parts of Essex. Now, you might have heard of a company called Greggs, if you've heard of sausage rolls and chocolate eclairs and probably Belgian buns and anything bakery related. They're a very successful bakery shop. I've had quite a few of their products before. Now, construction looks like it's going to set ahead here for Northern Gateway Leisure Park, which in March is a brand new retail park that is going to be opening. And what we could have is, I'm going to tease this here. If you love Greggs food out there, we could have potentially the first ever drive-through Greggs in Essex opening, which would be so amazing. I mean, literally, great thanks to our drive, because I would be making my way up to Colchester. I mean, surely Sean Sandbrook, shout out to obviously Sean Sandbrook, Theme Park Worldwide, that also does a channel called Adventure Sean, actually had a video where him and his girlfriend Charlotte went to a Greggs drive-through and actually ordered something in the car. Was it like a Fiat 500 or something? But it was really cool. So let me explain, guys. I'll get the article up now. This is from the Colchester Gazette newspaper. And then I'll get Zach's thoughts on this as well. So plans for a new 6th Jet Greggs outlet in Colchester have moved forward after signs for the new site put forward before planners. There are already 5 branches of Greggs across the city, with one located at Stane Retail Park, 2 located in the city centre, and 1 in Stanway and another in St Christopher Road. Now, the bakery chain has submitted plans for signs to Colchester Council for a drive-through outlet at Colchester's Northern Gateway Leisure Park. Last year, it was revealed Greggs and Wendy's will be coming into development. Work began on the £65 million leisure park in March. The development has already secured a 20-lane bowling alley from Hollywood Bowl and a Putt Stars indoor golf course. There will also be a City World and a travel lodge with 90 rooms, while restaurants Wendy's and Greggs will now each boast a drive-through on the site. Wow. The 200 square foot leisure development is located within Colchester's Northern Gateway, south of Junction 28 on the A12. Colchester's council will have the final say on the plans, but it looks like, well, what we're hearing, we're going to get a Greggs drive-through in Essex, which will be fantastic. Zach, what do you make to this news?
Thank God. I mean, Greggs drive-through. I mean, I don't eat much Greggs. I'll get Greggs once in my life, but a Greggs drive-through, hell yeah. I mean, the more the better, Charlie. They have do probably the most delicious food you could ever imagine, Charlie. Honestly, they do the most delicious things. And a Greggs drive-through in Colchester. I mean, I'm probably not going to go to that anytime soon, given the distance away. But just what you need, Charlie. More Greggs, yes. I'm certainly going to enjoy that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. What can you say? And I'm going to play for you this YouTube video, very short YouTube video, whilst we're here, because I really think this video is cool, of how to go through a drive-through. It is really clever. Now, obviously, I am going to be playing this video based on someone's YouTube channel, but just to give you an experience of what it's like. This is Theme Park Worldwide, Sean Sandbrook, on his YouTube channel, Venture to Sean, going to a Greggs drive-through with his girlfriend, Charlotte, from the channel. And this was how he shared his drive-through experience on YouTube. Have a listen to this.
Here we go. Welcome to the Greggs drive-through. Here we go. Wakey, fight and shine. Here we go. Oh, here's the menu. Look at this. So yeah, you still got all your deals, like your breakfast roll and the hot drink, $2.75 just up there. Here we go. Oh, all the breakfast options just there.
vegan sausage, bacon. Oh, honestly, we love Greggs. For any Americans watching this, because I know there's a lot on this channel.
Absolutely love Greggs.
You need this in America, don't you?
So good.
Honestly, the States, when we come over to America, like we love it and everything, but we do miss the food, and especially Greggs, which is it's a bakery. It started up in Newcastle, up north. Oh, here we go. Moving forwards, and yeah, this is brand new. Like it didn't open long ago at all. Oh, it's like McDonald's. Just order out here, me Greggs. Here we go.
What can I get you? Hello, can I get 2 sausage rolls? Yeah. A cheese and onion slice.
Oh, it's so weird.
Can I get a chocolate eclair?
Oh.
Yeah. And a chocolate muffin, please. And a chocolate muffin? Yes, please. Anything else? No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's weird, this, isn't it? Isn't it weird? Here we go. Freshly laid tarmac right next to IKEA as well. There we go. You got the window just round here. Greggs drive-through. Brilliant. Thank you. Oh, here we go. There's the now open sign. Lovely. Oh, the Greggs drive-through sign up there as well. Look at this. I'm getting way too excited about this. But I thought, whilst we're here in Sheffield, we've got to come and check it out. Here we go. That's it. Get parked up. Perfect next to IKEA, isn't it? And here's the bag. Just look at the size of this. Here we go. This bad boy. I can't believe it. Like, I'm really glad this is taking off, though, to be fair. Oh, you're joking? What's wrong?
Give me a pan of chocolate. I didn't know.
Hang on, though. If everything else is in there, we'll have that for free. Like, not complaining.
No, I haven't got a chocolate eclair.
Oh, you're joking?
I know.
Oh, all this hype, but the order's wrong.
The order's wrong.
Oh, no. You definitely ordered chocolate. You have to go back round, Charlotte.
I'm going to have to go in.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Oh, shocking. What, have we got the rolls and stuff in there?
This is Sean Sambrook now explaining what Greggs drive-thrus are in the UK.
What a nice way to start our Saturday. Right, so just before we wrap up this video, I've got a list of all the different ones. So I'm going to read them out for you now. All these Greggs drive-thrus. So you've got Ireland Gateway, you've got Sandy Lane, Bognor Regis, Mansfield, Dalkeith, Glasgow, Slough, Sheffield Meadowhall, Newport, scroll down a bit, Ashby de la Zouch, I believe that's my closest one, Frontier Park, Snetterton, North Bradley, and Portland. There you go. So there's your list of all your Greggs drive-thrus if you fancy coming down and grabbing yourself a sausage roll on the go without even leaving your car, unless your order's wrong. What?
Thank you there to Sean Sambrook there, Adventure Sean, for talking and explaining to the listeners exactly what a Greggs drive-thru is. I mean, wow, oh wow. If you're in the mood for a sausage roll or maybe a pork pie or something, there are so many options. As I said, what is all the list of Greggs drive-thrus there are? Well, it is huge, honestly. I just will quickly go through them again before I move on and do the papers. Whilst we have some time, I'll quickly go over what Greggs drive-thrus you can find in the UK. So here we go. Sean Sambrook said on the video here, these are all the ones. We've got Arlham Gateway, which is Liverpool Road, Arlham, Sandy Lane in North Godsford, Newcastle upon Tyne, Bognor Regis, Mansfield, Dalkeith, Glasgow, Slough, Sheffield, Meadowhall, Newport. There are also 5 other drive-thrus owned by Eurogauges or Falcon. These locations are Ashby de la Zouch, which is located in Nottingham Road, Ashby. You also have Frontier Park, that's in Blackburn. Snetterton, if you don't know where Snetterton is, that's a racing circuit, hosts British Touring Car Championship racing regularly. North Bradley, that's in Throwbridge, and Portland, that's, I believe, near Merseyside, so sort of not far from Liverpool. Zach, what do you make to the Greggs drive-thrus there?
That sounded very seamless, didn't it, Charlie? Very, it sounds better than the McDonald's drive-thru, if you think about it. You get delayed sometimes with those lot. It's a pain in the arse sometimes, you have to say. I've actually never gone. Well, I've gone through a McDonald's drive-thru before, but that was when I was a passenger. I was very young, Charlie. So the last time I've been through McDonald's one in ages, and I didn't even eat it. It was for my brother anyway. It was quite good at the time, but a Greggs drive-thru, oh yeah, sounds delicious.
Cheese and onion slice, chocolate muffins. We're all looking forward to eating a lovely. It's like, honestly, it's like a Saturday night takeaway, maybe. Maybe that would be perfect, or a Sunday evening snack as an option. But yeah, no, I'd love it. I don't even know what time these drive-throughs are open, but more on that during the week. There will actually be a YouTube video, guys, coming out next week on my channel, Chaz's Squash, where I'm going to be talking all about Greg's drive-throughs, guys. I've got a special video coming up on the one in the potential one opening in Essex. Should we see more of them in Essex potentially? That's what I'm going to leave it up to you guys to decide, and that video will be coming out during the week on my YouTube channel, Chaz's Squash there. Now, time to move on and talk about the serious stuff now, the newspaper reviews. The papers are here, reviewing the latest headlines. Let's go over them now and talk about what papers have been released. Now, Sunday Telegraph goes, hosepipe bans, or hosepipes must be now banned, says a minister. This concerns as fears of England's drought continue. That was to do with the very warm weather, the very dry weather the country has had, especially the other week when temperatures hit 40 degrees across much of the UK. The Daily Star goes, Heidi High sue BBC comedy So Low de Low. Sue Pollard has reportedly accused BBC comedy bosses of not delivering funny sitcoms. Okay, oh, interesting. The Independent goes with the headline, Archie fought right until the end as well. And also the main headline there, funds for struggling families must double. Sunday Express, Rishi vows to jail child groomers for life. Rishi Sunak actually announced that during a GB News interview with Esther and Stephen, I think. Oh, no, Esther and Philip, I think, sorry.
Yeah.
They do present Saturday morning live on that show. But yeah, Rishi Sunak had an interview with GB News and spoke about jailing child groomers for life. He claimed that he lashed out at political correctness that left men to abuse freely. The Observer goes, set emergency budget or risk a winter of dire poverty, ex-Prime Minister said. I think that might have been Gordon Brown.
Gordon Brown, it is, yeah.
That. So what do you make to the latest newspaper headlines?
All right, let's start with the Telegraph, because this is going to be interesting, Charlie, and it might even affect us if you think about it. There's a minister that is openly talking about a nationwide hosepipe ban in the south of England within days, and the Telegraph is actually reporting this pretty seriously, Charlie. Crackdown on water use looms across England as fears of extended drought. Obviously, this is actually to do with the fact that we've gone through a very hot summer, Charlie, and it's going to continue to rain dry throughout the next 3 weeks. In fact, it's going to reach possibly 30 degrees on Friday, 32 degrees on next Saturday, Charlie. It's going to be very, very hot weather, and it's not going to be raining, I have to say, from what I've seen from the forecast as well, Charlie. So it's going to be very dry, and the water is drying up. So that's when you start implementing hosepipe bans, because the water is drying up. You can't use it. And it's like there's already been some areas, Charlie, that already have hosepipe bans. I think in some areas in Surrey, I think it is, and Kent, that have hosepipe bans already, because the water has actually pretty much going low on there. So the rest of East of England, I wouldn't be surprised to see the hosepipe bans on its way, because it's dry weather, Charlie, and this is what happens when dry weather and hot weather comes along for a prolonged period. That it's gonna reduce the amount of water that's available, and hosepipe bans will be necessary. I mean, it's the first time I remember hosepipe bans in ages, Charlie. I think it was 2010 that when we had hosepipe bans. The last time we got this dry and this warm. So yeah. It's a serious situation, Charlie. In other words, we need more wet weather on the way. Just, like drizzly, normal seasonal rain, I think what we need. Just to get away from these hosepipe bans. But that weather is not going to change for now, Charlie. So that looks drought is on its way by the looks of it, Charlie, no doubt about it. The Daily Star goes for their comical, not so comical headline of the week, Charlie. I have to say, this is probably the least comical I've seen it. Heidi High sue BBC comedy So Low de Low. This is the fact that Sue Pollard, you may know her, Heidi High hero, she has put the boot on the BBC comedy bosses for not giving us any funny sitcoms for hard times. Yeah. I have to say, Tony, one of those comedy shows that actually is being axed, and you may even read about it, is Mock the Week is going to be axed at the end of the year, Charlie, on the BBC after how many years? 17 years in it's been on the air, Charlie. It's one of my favourite shows, and that's been axed. And I think I'm going to be disappointed when it goes, Charlie, because it's probably one of those shows that I watch every week for the things that we like to see scenes, bits, Charlie. Probably one of the best bits about British comedy and political, general comedy that I see. It's also, Mock the Week has been, giving us is the place to see upcoming new comedy talent, Charlie, that you never heard of, but of the future comedy. I mean, the Mock the Week gave the likes of Frankie Boyle and Romesh Ranganathan, with two very popular figures. So, yeah, it's a shame there. So, but it looks like the BBC want to expand comedy programs some way or another. It's a bit of a shame that Mock the Week is going to become a victim of that, unfortunately, in the autumn, I'm afraid, Charlie. The Independent goes for funds for struggling families must double. This is on the political side. We'll get to the other one in a minute. The new PM will need to double the amount of cost from living support available from 15 billion to 30 billion. Experts have told the Independent. This has obviously got to do with the fear that obviously the autumn and the winter are coming up and the cost of living crisis will be peaking, Charlie. As you may know this week, Charlie, the Bank of England increased interest rate from 1.25% to 1.75%. It's a 0.5 rate hike. It's the biggest in many years, Charlie. They also forecast that inflation will reach 13% in October and that there is going to be a recession from the winter until all next year, Charlie. That is a big disaster, Charlie, for the UK economy. And how our potential prime ministers, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, react is interesting. Because, like I've said, Charlie, before, their policies are fantasy at the moment. I mean, Liz Truss's one's just fantasy. Rishi Sunak's one's just, his situation that he got himself into with the tax increase and all that sort of thing. So unfortunately, they've put themselves in a bit of a pickle, and it's not going to get any better. Liz Truss says that a recession is not inevitable. Well, let's come to say October, December time and see whether we're really going to be saying that, Charlie, or not. I think we will be saying that potentially based on what the Bank of England have forecast. But yeah, some very dire warnings from the Bank of England this week about the economy coming up. It's not pretty at all. It's certainly not as well. And there's the picture as well of Archie Battersby, who's sadly 12 years old. He's dead because he came off life support today. As I say, rest in peace as well to him. The Sunday Express: Rishi vows to jail child groomers for life. Well, that's a good thing, to be fair, Charlie. We want child groomers to be a very feature of Oldham and Rotherham, where hideous act took place of grooming children and other idiots as well by lots of grooming gangs used for torture, for rape, and it's horrible what happened in Rotherham as well. And Rishi Sunak has basically said that he will increase the sentencing for grooming gangs to life, something which I actually agree with on this one. He also lashes out at political correctness that left men to be freely. Okay, that's an interesting one. Has pledged to crack down on child grooming gangs by locking up offenders for life. He blamed critical correctness for the country's failure to get grips with the crime. Okay, really? Right. I don't know why they haven't been jailed in the first place, to be fair, Charlie. And the Observer goes with the Gordon Brown's message to the new Prime Minister: set emergency budget or risk of winter of dire poverty. To be fair, if you think about it, Charlie, Liz Truss has pledged to do an emergency budget when if she becomes Prime Minister. I don't know why I said he there. It's a she. But when she becomes Prime Minister, potentially, if she does get the role, which is looking likely at the moment, then She'll do an emergency bowling. That's what she's pledged. Rishi Sunak has not exactly pledged the same thing. But I have to say there will have to be action this winter, Charlie, because energy bills are going to go up to £3,500, potentially £4,000, potentially up to £500 a month. There needs to be something done this before the winter gets and before the cold months kick in, Charlie, because people are going to be not going to be able to afford the prices that come out, Charlie. No doubt about it. As well, let's go through some of the other papers that have not been released. I might actually refresh this page to see if there's any more papers that have been released. Yes, the Sunday Times has just released their paper, Charlie. Sunak pledges billions more to ease crisis. He, as Truss rules out fresh energy bills giveaway, he backs further support for the poorest. So this is an interesting pledge. That's on the Sunday Times, Charlie. Pledge shakes up of A-levels as well. If he becomes Prime Minister, forcing every people to keep studying English and maths until 18. Would vow to create 75 free schools, said he would absolutely not quit politics if he lost the race with Downing Street. Pledged to keep love bombing Tory voters to try and get them on board with him. So some new stuff announced by Rishi Sunak tonight in an interview with the Sunday Times. He's pledged to introduce another multi-billion-pound package to help ease cost of the living crisis. So now both candidates are basically pledging new things, Charlie, as well, which is good to see. But whether they will work or not is who knows. And I believe there's another paper up there, Charlie.
Sunday People releases Britain
Eco meltdown.
faces eco meltdown.
Activists plan mass protests as heat wave looms. Oh, bloody hell!
God, not more.
An eco protest. You heard this one before, Charlie, I think. Let's hope it's more the Greta Thunberg type of protests and not the Extinction Rebellion type of protest.
And the football is back. Premier League returns this weekend.
Yeah, it's been on for the last 2 days, Charlie. Good football so far this weekend as well. 2 more games tomorrow. 3 more games tomorrow as well. Which I'll be watching. So look forward to that very much. But that's the papers, I believe, Charlie, for tomorrow.
Yeah, quick update as well on football whilst we're here as well. On the Premier League action. I'll just get up the scores for you now. Premier League action, me and Zach will quickly run over some of today's matches.
Oh, yes. Where are we? Oh, there we go. We're getting it up now. If I can see Charlie.
Here we go, guys. Here's the football.
There we go. It's still whirling. I can still whirl. There we go. So, start out on Friday, Charlie. 2-0 win for Arsenal over Crystal Palace. Today's surprise result, Fulham-Liverpool, 2-2 draw. Good start for the newly promoted Fulham side, a 2-2 draw, where they were actually leading at some point, Fulham as well, during the match. It was a very good match overall. Bournemouth, newly promoted Bournemouth, 2-0 also win over Steven Gerrard's Aston Villa. Big result for them. Newcastle began by 2-0 against newly promoted Nottingham Forest. So that's 2 of the 3 teams having good results today, I think, Charlie, as well. Tottenham won, was it 4-1 against Southampton? Big result for Tottenham. They did come from a goal behind to get 4 up at the end of the day. Leeds with a 2-1 victory against Wolves. Chelsea just holding off Everton in the end to win 1-0. And tomorrow's match is, Charlie, Leicester against Brentford at 2 o'clock. Manchester United against Brighton at 2. And West Ham v Man City, probably the big match of the weekend, concluding at 4:30 tomorrow as well, Charlie. Starting at 4:30 tomorrow. That's on Sky Sports.
Yeah, all fixtures tomorrow will be available on Sky Sports, maybe BT Sports Show Match as well. But that's all the actual news there from the papers and also the sports around there. So, Great British Star and Red Devils of the Week. Let's start with my nominations for the Great British Star. I'm going to give it to a person called George Miller this week. Ooh. If you haven't heard of George Miller this week, he is the oldest ever athlete, I believe, to win a medal, the oldest Commonwealth Games gold medalist at 75 years old. He got a gold medal with his Scotland team in, and I quote this now, a sport called lawn bowls. And he baked in satisfaction. George Miller becomes the oldest gold medalist. Miller won part of the team that won gold in the B2-3 mixed pairs bowls. as well, along with the rest of his Scotland team. George Miller gets a Great British Star nomination for the oldest Commonwealth Games gold medal list at 75 years old. What an incredible achievement from him to earn himself a Great British Star this week. Also getting a nomination is the Lionesses as well, for their fantastic win last weekend in the final of the Euros against Germany. Yes, we won against Germany the year before in the men's competition. We beat them in the Euros final this year. So congratulations to the Lionesses last weekend. And Zach, what's your nominations for the Star this week?
It finally came home, Charlie. It finally came home for the woman. I hope the men take the inspiration. I'm going to give the Star this week to Nancy Pelosi for the visit she did to Taiwan. Very brave for her to do that sort of thing, considering she stood up to the Chinese and the threats and went to Taiwan anyway. And good on her, because Taiwan's an important neighbour, even though it's been threatened by the Chinese. And in a normal democracy, they have a friendly relationship, the Taiwan and the US, which is good to see. And they're continuing. They need to chat about the continuing partnership on certain issues such as democracy, human rights, manufacturing, chips, all those sort of things. Very important, Charlie. And Nancy Pelosi stood up to the Chinese and the Communist Party like she has done for many years. And she is the British Star for me this week. The Red Devils, I'm going to give it to two of them. I'm going to give it both to the Tory leadership candidates, Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, for their gaffes and awful, awful commitments this week, Charlie. Obviously, Liz Truss' side, the regional pay board, which she thankfully scrapped, but I don't know how it even got out in the first place, Charlie. Levelling down the north with fewer pay for those who work in the civil service, behind those who work in London who would get bigger pay under her plans. All nice rich areas, Charlie. It's a terrible policy, but I'm glad it's dropped. And then Rishi Sunak, well, another example of prioritising the rich over the poor, where he admitted in that leaked video obtained by the New Statesman speaking to members in Tunbridge Wells that he lobbied to get money from deprived urban areas away and headed to more affluent, wealthy areas that Tories support, Charlie. I mean, it was an awful idea in the first place that was even considered. So both the leadership candidates get the Red Devil this week. And I'm actually going to give the honorary mention for me, Charlie, to Archie Battersea and their family, Charlie, because there's no doubt that they deserve a mention for all the hell they've gone through. And the family deserves so much, support and love for, caring about their son. At the end of the day, it wasn't meant to be. Rip Archie. And just hope there's so much peace for the family ahead now.
Yeah, finally, my nominations for the Red Devil. Red Devil this week goes to the Tory leadership candidates for not having a plan to tackle the migrant crisis. Also, joint nomination goes to the Home Office for that, because the numbers of migrant crossings this week has been unacceptable. In the last couple of days, over 1,000 migrants crossed the English Channel. Absolutely horrendous numbers. The Rwanda plan needs to be scrapped and needs to be changed. We can't have a plan that doesn't work. So that's a nomination for both Tory leadership candidates, because they haven't got a plan. They seem very short-sighted on the issue. I'm also going to give another nomination to Taiwan as well. The honorary nomination goes to Donica McCarthy this week, who appeared on GB News this week to say that people should not drive cars in order to save the planet. Oh my God. So let me just say this, okay? He goes on GB News in a clash to say, should we ban using cars? There are other ways we can go, walking, cycling. Yes, I understand that. But the car is essential to get people around. So this is basically the same person who believes in a flat earth. Well, let me just say he's the guy who backed Insulate Britain at protest. That would you make to my Red Devil nominations this week?
That honorary mention's a bit weird. I mean, yeah, strange idea. It's not work. It doesn't work in practical ideas, doesn't it, Charlie? As well. I mean, the only person that's come closest to getting immigration plans is Rishi Sunak, but not enough anyway, Charlie. It's obviously not enough. So
Yeah, not enough for me housing migrants in cruise ships. That's not a solution. I'm not going on a cruise with migrants on it. I'll look more. I'll look like I'm heading to a Wild West show. That would be my
just
honest
as long
opinion.
As you don't go on dinghy boats, Charlie, then you might be more pressure on you.
Yeah, great. Thank you for that. Well, thank you, guys. Thank you for all the. If you're a listener and you want to, if you will comment on how migrant crossings work, please comment down below, guys. I'd like to hear your opinion on the issue. But unfortunately, guys, that's all we have time for now for the Charlie Tolhurst show this week. It's been a great show tonight. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all again next week for another edition of the Charlie Tolhurst show live on YouTube. Take care, everyone, and good night.